Yesterday, sorry, we got off to a little bit late start today. 10 minutes, I'm sorry, 15 minutes. All right. Yesterday, we learned about how the Jewish people were in Egypt, how they got, really, we started learning it last week, how the Jewish people got into Egypt. That, first of all, was very good. The whole world was starving, and a Jew called Yosef saved the whole world. And he brought his father and his brothers there, and everybody gave them great honors. What a wonderful father that must be. Had such a wonderful son. And then he brought his other sons, and it was very impressive, and everybody was very impressed. And the whole land succeeded, and everything was wonderful. And then Yosef and all of his brothers died. And as soon as that happened, there's two different opinions. Either it was a new king or the same king as before. And it says that, here it is. Yeah, the Jewish people succeeded very much, right? So it says, Vayakom melech hadash, there was a new king and on Egypt, and he didn't know Yosef. And if you remember, we said, what does it mean he didn't know Yosef? He didn't, the Kli Yakar says he didn't know how Yosef's brothers tried everything they could to kill him, and God nevertheless prevented his death. So it's the same thing with the Jewish people. You can try whatever you want to, but you're not going to succeed. But he forgot that. So the king said to his people, listen, the Jewish people, they're increasing too much. We have to get rid of them. Maybe there's going to be a war. There'll be enemies from the outside, and there'll be a fifth column. Remember, we did this yesterday. So he put all sorts of work masters over them, and made them work and made them build cities. And the more that they made the Jews suffer, the more they succeeded, and the Egyptians couldn't stand them. Katsu b'chayim. It says the Jews were like thorns in their eyes. I mean, here these Jews came, they were foreign people. They didn't have the wonderful, licentious, debased customs of the Egyptians. It says that in every house there was all these illegitimate children just all over the place, and everybody loved it. And there's even a commandment in the Torah not to do what the Egyptians did. That's how we know that lesbianism is forbidden, because it says that they did it in Egypt, and women had two husbands, and etc. Anyway, not to go into the details on these things are nothing new nowadays, but that was the commonplace in Egypt. And all of a sudden come these Jews, and the Jews are chaste and everything. One second. Somebody's crying outside. Okay. So the non-Jews hated him, wanted to get rid of him. They didn't know what to do with him. So it said, now you would think that, the Jews were servants, so they got more servants. Oh, what's wrong with that? But the problem is that here he says vayekutsu, that they were disgusted. It says when God revealed himself to Moses in the sneh. What is the sneh? Like I told you about this last time. The sneh is like a little a bush, a bramble bush. And it's easy to get into, but you can't get out of it. So the same thing as all these Jews were all over the place. No matter what, the Jews could always stood out. They always stood out, and they would never really be 100% servants. So they didn't like that. So they tried to make them work hard. They made their lives bitter. And the king of it said, okay, do me a favor. He took the Jewish midwives and said, one of them said, look, I want you to do like this. When the woman give birth, I want you to kill the children. You kill the children, you'll be good. They thought these ladies would be like capos, they had in the Nazis had these capos. And so if it's a female child, you can let her live. And if it was a man child, then you should kill it. Okay, so why? That's what we got up to now. That's what we got up to. We didn't do these yesterday. Okay, so Pharaoh made a decree. All of the men, the women children, you can let them live. But all of the men, you should kill. The men should kill. The Rebbe also points out that this means that you should let them live the way that we live. In other words, according to our standards. The women, educate them according to our standards. So here we go. If it's a son, so it says, kill him. Pharaoh only really cared, Pharaoh only really cared about the male children. Why? Because it said to him, it's Tagnina of his astrologers, there's going to be a child, a Moshiach Otan that's going to save all of the Jews, etc. So he kept wanted to kill all the males. I mean, really, would you think that Pharaoh exactly the opposite? The men, they worked hard. He wanted them for hard work. So leave the men to be alive. If you want to kill anybody, kill the women. Then each time you kill a man, so you're not really, decimating the population. And you're not really limiting the population of Egypt, just by one. But every woman that you do with, one woman can give birth to, 10 children, 20 children, 50 children. How many children she can give birth to. So that's like a sure thing. You kill the women, it's more certain, right? If you have 100 women and you have one man, so he can make all the women pregnant. On the other hand, if you have 100 men and one woman, so how many children can she give birth to, right? So the best thing is to get rid of the women. But he nevertheless wasn't thinking straight. And also, he knew that the savior of the Jewish people is going to be some sort of a man. Okay, what's going to happen? We know what's going to happen. Well, let's go further. But they feared God, and they didn't do what the king of Egypt said, and he kept the children alive. Now, who were these women? It says one of them was Miriam, and the other one was Yocheved. So eventually, Miriam, she was, of course, Moses' sister, and Yocheved was Moshe's mother. So let's see. Here it says, where does it say? Yeah, there it says. Yocheved and Miriam. Okay. So they feared God and they didn't kill him. Here we go. That's what we officially got up to last time. Right. The king of Egypt called the women, and he said to them, why are you doing this? Why are you letting the boys alive? You're not killing them. I thought you were going to kill the boys. We're just how do you say, limiting the population. Too many people in the world. I think we hear something like that today also. There's always people. You should know that. I remember from when I was, 50 years ago, there were all these theories, maybe before. There's too many people in the world. There's going to be a catastrophe. It's going to kill everybody. There's going to be too many. So the really valuable ones, who's the valuable ones? Us, of course, the other people. Anyway, that's what Pharaoh said. So these nursemaids, whatever the women that were helping to give birth, they said to Pharaoh, listen, we're trying to kill the kids. Believe me, we're really doing our best. But the local nashim, mitzrios, ivrios, you don't know these Jewish women. They're not like your typical Egyptian woman. Ki chayotenu. The Jewish women, they're like animals. What does it mean? The animals, they give birth on their own. We try everything we can to get to them before they give birth, and they already gave birth. As soon as we get there, children are already there. Rashi says, Chayosema Bakim, they are experts in giving birth and experts in birth. Another explanation is no, they're chayas. They're like animals. What? They're like animals in the field. The animals in the field, they don't have to have midwives. Same thing. There's Jewish women. They just now the interesting thing is, of course, they gave birth to 6 children at one time. It says that's what it says. So that's how they became so many Jews. I mean, there was like in the course of 210 years, it went from 70 to about 15 million. So that sort of doesn't make any sense unless you really have to do, I mean, some real strong multiplication over there. Heichan Meshulas, it says another thing is that they're compared to animals. How so? It says that Yehuda was Gur Aryeh, Benjamin is Zebya Toref, Bechor Shoro, that was Yosef, Ayala Shulucha was Naphtali. Right? All it's in general, it says that they are the Jewish people, and that way they're animals. There was once, I remember somebody said it was a lot of pushing, it was a religious thing. And one of this, anyway, some rabbi said, oh, your Hasidim are like a bunch of animals. He said, yeah, like holy animals, Chayot HaKodesh, like the holy animal. So here the OrHaChaim goes into a whole big thing. And he says that the women explained to Pharaoh that, listen, we try to make an estimation when these ladies are going to give birth. And we go to them with all sorts of food and things like that. And, to treat them nicely so that they'll trust us and kill. And before we get there, they already gave birth. It was a very interesting thing that in Israel, it's a terrible thing to compare the Israelis to this, but that's what it was when especially the Yemenite, when the Yemenites came, the Israel in the beginning, the beginning Zionists, they were like huge, amazing bigots. They were all Ashkenazic Jews. They were white, and all these Sephardic Jews that came from all the Arab countries, they treated them as second-class citizens, but especially the Yemenites. The Yemenites were very dark-skinned, So there was a lot of them, and it was a huge scandal, and it's still going on, and they're still trying to cover it over. But they would go to the women would give birth in the hospitals, and they would take the child and tell the wife that the lady that her child died. And the child didn't, anyway, not to go into it too much, but anyway, there was such a thing like that. But here these women that gave birth, the God did good to them, and Vayirav and the people increased, and they got more and got more. So he said, the Sforno says that that Pharaoh believed them. People increased here. Let's see where this is. One moment. Oh, Das came here. Let's go down to the bottom. It says, Vayitav Elokim. I'm sorry. God did good to them. Vayitav Elokim le'mealdos, that God benefited these midwives. Who did we say the midwives was? Yocheved and Miriam. So Vayitav Heitiv, God did good to them. And that's okay. No, this is all grammar, etc. Grammar. He said, what good did he do to them? What was exactly the good that he did? So here's the Dat Skanim says that we'll see on the next one, that he gave them houses. It says, Vayas lahem batim. When the mialdot, because they filled the midwives, they feared God, so God made them houses. What type of houses did he give them? So he says, houses to be a Kohen and the Levites. Now, all the Kohen and the Levites, they all came from Moses, right? Moses was supposed to be he was the high priest, and eventually it was taken away from the firstborn, and it was given over to Moshe, to Levi. So anyone who was not a Kohen, that's the people came from Aaron. They were all Kohen. From Aaron's children, they became Kohanim. And all those relatives that weren't directly from Aaron, they came from Moses. And those were the Levites. And also Malchut. Malchut. Later on, it says Miriam, that was one of the midwives, right? That was Moses' sister. So she got married later on to Kalev ben Yefuna. He was one of the tribes the representatives that went into the land of Israel, he went in together with Yoshua bin Nun. And he came back. He was from the tribe of Yehuda. They got married, right? And eventually from them came out King David. In a roundabout way. Okay, we're going to see exactly how that is in a moment. As soon as Pharaoh saw, here's the dot scanning. When Pharaoh saw that his decree of killing all the males wasn't going, so he made them houses. What do you mean he made them houses? Not like what Rashi said. He built Miriam and Yochebed houses by his other servants to see if they would go back to the Jews, because he had also other servants from other places. He wanted to see if they were really loyal to the Jews or not, or if so, they were lying or they were telling the truth. And that's what he says he made for them batim. Okay, Rashi says a little bit differently. So Pharaoh said to his people like this: every child that's born, throw him into the river. Now this is to there's everybody in the whole country. All of your male children, throw them into the ocean, the river, the Nile River, and all the daughters you can let live. Now, ostensibly, this is really only referring to the Jewish people. But Rashi says, here it says, the day that Moses was born, his astrologers again said, today the Savior of Israel, today it's born. He's born today, the Savior of the Jews. But we don't know if he's an Egyptian or a Jew. So we see that in the end, somehow or other, the Jews are going to be smitten with water. And therefore, he said, let's make a decree even on the Egyptians. Like it says, Kolaben, all the sons get smitten. Take all the sons and throw them into water. It doesn't say all this, the Jewish sons. What exactly is this water that the Jewish people are going to get smitten with? He thought it means that we're going to kill all the Jews in the water, throw them into the river. But they didn't know that what was going to get, because May Meribah. There was the May Meribah that Moses struck the rock. That's when they didn't have the water. So Moses struck the rock. And because of that, he didn't go to the land of Israel. And that's the water that he got struck on, because the water was supposed to give water. The rock was supposed to give water and didn't. Okay. They thought they would take it out in a different way. There went a person from the house of Levi, and he took a woman from Levi. What do you mean? What do you mean? Just say a man got married to a woman. What does it mean? He went. He went. A person can't went. So it says like this. What does it mean? That. What do you mean? He took her. Amram was married to Yochebed. This is the mother and father of Moshe, right? Moses. So he was married to his wife, but he separated from her because of the decree of Pharaoh. Pharaoh said all the male sons throw into the river. So he said, what's the sense of having children if they're just going to get drowned? That's what it means, Vayelech, that he went. He went because of the advice of his daughter. That's what it says in the Gemara. In Sota, I'm not mistaken. And his daughter said, Miriam said to him, what are you doing, Dad? Says, I'm divorcing from your mother because, if we have any children, they're just going to get thrown in the river, and it's not good for me, not good for her, not good for anybody. So what's the sense of staying married? So his daughter said to him, Daddy, you're worse than Pharaoh. Why? Pharaoh only wants to kill the males. And you, by not having any children, then you're preventing the birth of even females. He took his wife back. It says, looking, and he made a second marriage. That's what it means, Vayikach, that he took her again. Also, she says she took Bat Levi, Bat Levi, she became young again. How old was she back then? Says, well, the fact is that when this story starts, that he took his wife back, she was 130 years old. She was 130 years old when she gave birth to Moses. Shenolda Babol Mitzrayim, she says that Yocheved was born when the day that the Jews entered Egypt, they came in. How long were they in Egypt altogether? 210 years. So Yocheved, when she got out, she was born 210 years before they left Egypt, right? They came into Egypt. She was just born when they came in. She was born, it said, at the entrance of Egypt, she was born. When the sons of Yaakov came in. And when everybody left Egypt, she was 210. How old was Moses when the Jewish people left? Moses was 80 years old. So therefore, she must have gotten pregnant with Moses 80 years before they went out of Egypt, right? Moses was 80 when they left Egypt. So therefore, take 80 years old, subtract it from the 210 years that they were in Egypt altogether, and you get that she was 130 years old. If so, when she got pregnant, she must have been 130 years old. Why is she called Bat Levi? Why was she called the daughter of Levi? Because she became young again. She became young, she could give birth. Here's an interesting BalHaTurim. He said, here it says, Vayelech ish. Vayelech, this Vayelech indicates the redeemer of the Jews. Here it says, Vayelech ish mi beit lechem, mi beit Levi. That's going to give birth to Moshe. He was the first redeemer. He took the Jews out of Egypt. And this, when it says, Vayelech ish mi beit lechem, Yehuda, that's how the book of Ruth begins. Oto alicha bo agol achron, eventually comes Mashiach ben David. You ever read the book of Ruth? Weird book, sad book. There's a fellow called Elimelech, and he's like rich. He has 2 children, 2 sons, and he leaves Israel, and he goes outside, and his sons get married to 2 non-Jewish women, and he himself dies. And these 2 non-Jewish women, one of them is Ruth, and the 2 sons die also. So Ruth is just left with Elimelech's widow, who's called Naomi. And that's all the whole story with Ruth, and eventually she converts, and she does, and she gets married to Boaz, and from Boaz it comes at the end of the story, that from that comes Yishai, comes David. So that's what Vayelech is saying, that something good is going to come out of this eventually. One minute. Okay. Vatara Yisha, she got pregnant and she gave birth to a son, and she saw that he was good, and she hid him for 3 weeks, 3 months. What if she saw he was good? If he wasn't good, she wouldn't hide him. She hid him for 3 weeks. No, she saw he was good. What was he good? It says, when he got born, the house got filled with light. What's it? So what if the house got filled with light? Then she had to hide him. So it says that they would go around the houses and they would try to figure out, right, when women got pregnant, when they were going to give birth, and then they would take the child. They would wait outside of the house. As soon as they heard the child crying, giving birth, then they would throw him in the river. But she gave birth after 6 months. Here, the next Rashi says here. Here, these Datzakanim says, because Moses was born after 6, I would really love to do all these other explanations. They're just beautiful, but we haven't got time. Okay, because Moses was born after 6 months. So therefore, they figured, according to some opinions, that he was a surprise. They didn't know that he was even born, because he was born early. In any case, even those that knew that he was born, they thought that he was stillborn. So they wanted to see if he was really finished or not. They saw that he was good. What does it mean that he was good? That they saw that his body was finished. That's why they had. Another means that he was good means that he was beautiful, and therefore they knew that he was. He was a child who was beautiful. Another explanation is that they saw that the house was filled with light, so they were afraid that the Egyptians would pass by in the nighttime and they would see this light coming from the house. They would know that there was a living child there and that they would catch him. In any case, there's another opinion that says that he was born Tov, he was born Kitov, that he was born circumcised. When he was born, he was already born circumcised. Moshe. It ended up that they couldn't hide him anymore. Why? Because it was coming through the time when, here it says, that the Egyptians knew when Moses' father, remarried his wife, right? Remarried his wife. So they counted from that time, and they figured from 9 months, she'll give birth. That's what usually women do. But she gave birth after 6 months and 1 day. So that already took her into the 7th month. And it says that if a 7th month, if a child is born into the 7th month, then it's a sign that he's going to be a living child, a surviving child. So they checked after 9 months. So they realized that 9 months was coming close. So they couldn't hide him anymore. So what did they do? They put him into, it says, Vatikach Goma, that they took a sort of they took like a box. Goma, we'll see what Goma means. Goma means like it's made from some sort of rubber or something like that, rubber tree. Anyway, something that's very soft, and it'll float. And they covered it over with tar on the outside, and a coat of like not cement, like plaster. Oh, plaster on the inside, so that Moses wouldn't suffer from the bad smell of the zephet, of the tar. And to put him into Suf. What's the Suf? What is the Suf? Is like this river, but it was like like a marsh sort of a river, which was at the edge of the river, because all the water in Egypt came from the main river, and these were all these tributaries and marshes and things that were drawn out of the river. His sister stood far away to find out what was going to happen to him. He says, the Sforno says that she thought, now in the streets of Egypt were running around all these unwanted children, because that's called an asufi, Mitzrayim, beli safek, ki malay oret zima, because all the women were having relations outside of the marriage. So let's say as soon as the child started getting older, and the father said, "Hey, where did he get that big nose from? Where did he get those ears that look like a rabbit? My ears look like a donkey. How did it happen?" So the wife, she would worry for her husband that he would suspect her, even though her husband was also doing suspicious things on his own. Nevertheless, they would throw the kid out in the street. Like the prophet says, Zaramtam Zusib Zaram. Okay. How licentious they were. Any case, so here is Moses floating around in this little box. One second, we have a question over here. No, for sure there were no people that remembered Joseph when Moses was born. For sure not. He was already born in the middle of all the troubles. He was born 130 years after they came into Egypt. Joseph died, he was 110 years old. And Moses was born 130 years after they came into Egypt. So it means that Joseph, he died like, 70 something years before Moses was even born. So Pharaoh, the daughter of Pharaoh, went down to wash on the edge of the river, and her children were going with her. And she says, "Oh, here's this. Look at this box." And she sent forth one of her servants or her arm. We'll see, and she took it. Very interesting Rashi over here. She went down to wash. It says that she went down to wash on the city, on the river, not on the river, al yad, near the river. Okay, this is more grammar. Another reason the rabbis say the holcha, holechet, narotea holechet, that they went. It says they went. With this word holechet implies death. Holechet implies death, murder. Kamo anochi holech lamut, like I am going to die. Holechet lamut, I am going to die. Who's dying over here? What are you talking about? It says, the Torah says, et amota, she went, Vatishlach et amota, she took, et means, one second. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped the line of this. Holchot lamut lefi shemicha ba. Because her maidservants, they tried to reprove her, to stop her. What happened? She saw a box floating in the sea. She was going to take the box and save it. Her maidservants said, your father made a decree to kill all the males. You're the daughter of Pharaoh. You're going to save one of the males, right? The people have trouble doing it. If they see that you're not even obeying your father, no one's going to obey her. So what happened? God killed them. That's what it means by Yelech, that they went, that God killed all of them. That's what it says, et amota, et shifchata. Rabbotenu say, lashon yad. Amota means her hand, like an amma. Aval, dikto lashon hakodesh, that her arm became long, it says. Amota, et yardashi nisravava, that her arm became long, and it became like several yards long, so that she could reach into the river and get Moshe. Yeah. Okay. So it says, Batiftach v'tera'eta yeled. They saw, she opened it up and she saw, here is Moses. V'hinei nar bucheh. There was a child, this is the daughter of Pharaoh, right? V'tachmol alav, and she had mercy on him. And she said, Miyaldei Yivrim, this must be one of the children of the Jews. Why? Tiftach, what she saw. What did she see? She saw the child. That's a simple meaning. And it says that she saw that with him was God's presence. And there was a child that was weeping. Right? That's what she saw. She kanar. She heard the child. Nar means like a young boy. So he had the voice of a young boy. So it says, how did she know? It says that this is the Ramban, that she saw that he was circumcised. What happened? She saw that he was circumcised. If so, she removed his garments and she checked him to see if it was one. But he doesn't agree with this. The Ramban does not agree with this. Vatomer achota, she said, achoto el bat Paro, the sister of Moses, Miriam, said to Bat Paro, you want to? I'll go and I'll find a nursemaid from the Jewish ladies, and she can nurse the child. Why from the Jews? Why not from Egypt? So Rashi says, take an Egyptian lady. What the Egyptian ladies also, they had milk, they had breasts, they could have fed the child. Says no, that they took this child to all the Egyptian women, and he refused because he was going to speak with the Shekhinah, with God's presence. The God's words were going to come out of his mouth. So therefore, he refused to put impure milk into his mouth. The daughter of Pharaoh said, okay, go and find someone that'll nurse Shalvatelecha Alma. And the young lady went. Alma means a young lady. Doesn't mean a virgin like that. Alma, she went, and she found the mother of the child. Right? She found the mother of the child. She went quickly, like a Alma, like a young lady. She went. Yocheved. And Bat Paro said, Vayomer lo Bat Paro, Helichi et hayeled hazeh, take this child and nurse him, and I'll give you a reward. I'll pay you for it. And she took him and she gave him. She said, Nitnabe, she made a prophecy. What does it mean? That says, Helichi et hayeled. Helichi means that what? That Hashem, Hey Shalichi, that God, He's the one that will take you all out. God is also God, this is the Savior of the Jewish people. He's going to take you out of Egypt. The child got older, and they brought him, and Yocheved took him home and nursed him. So they brought him back to Bas Paro. She was asking about him all the time, and she adopted him for a child. And she called his name Moshe. Why in the world did she call him Moshe? Because he said, Mina Maya Mishitiu. I drew him out of the water. Let's just do one more. Imtom, if you want to say, V'halo Mitzri Sayita, she was an Egyptian. How could she call him by the name of a Hebrew name? The daughter of Pharaoh, I mean, that's really dangerous. She was going to call him a Hebrew name in Pharaoh's house. This is the adopted son. And how did she even know Hebrew to call him? Way we could say that she called him the language of Mitzri. She actually said it in an Egyptian word, Sham Shemashmut Moshe, that really she didn't call him Moshe. She called him whatever Arabic word or Egyptian word that means to be drawn out. And the Torah just says Moshe, Ivri. That's what they call it. Another opinion is that she learned Hebrew. One, from when? That she had all these servants, Ivriot Mitzri, because of these Jewish servants. So she knew how to speak Hebrew. And we also find that Pharaoh said Shem Yosef Tzapnat Panech, that Pharaoh, he knew that Yosef's name was Yosef, but he called him an Egyptian name also. So what do we see? We see that Moses, paradoxically, is being brought up in the house of the very person who was his biggest enemy. The very person who was his biggest enemy, which shows that if God wants to do something, that nothing is impossible. Have a good day with Mashiach now. God willing, we'll continue tomorrow, 8:15 in the morning. Hope to see you all. Thank you.
Rabbi Bolton, how are you doing again? It's Dovi.
Shalom, Dovi. How are you?